It's none of my business, I know, but I couldn't help but notice. Looks like psychosis. Life on relationship low. What's going on over there? It's none of my business, I know, but I couldn't help but notice. Looks like psychosis. We live on relationship road.
Things have been quiet enough in number 3 since Alice went missing, but that's because Peter is keeping a more consistent eye on her. But the stress of this is beginning to take its toll on him. He's beginning to feel like a prisoner in his own home. He dare not leave Alice alone for more than a few minutes at a time. It reminds him of what it was like when their daughter Kathy was a baby. He recalls that once she started walking, she was into everything and you couldn't turn your back on her for a minute. Kathy has been visiting her mum and dad as often as she can. But with 2 children of her own to manage, she doesn't have a lot of time to herself, and she really hasn't got the patience or energy to take on yet another responsibility. On her last visit, she suggested to her dad that he should ask Paula if she could do a few hours every week to give him a break. Peter has given this a lot of thought, and today he plans to knock on Paula's door and ask for her help. Just then he hears a knock at the door, and it's Olive, who has agreed to sit with Alice while Peter goes over the road to see Paula. Peter feels a bit awkward about asking Paula because he doesn't want her to feel obliged to say yes, but it's definitely her that he wants to employ, having witnessed the way she managed Alice on a day when Alice was particularly distraught and difficult. He plucks up courage and knocks on the door. Unfortunately for Peter, it's Sean that answers the door as Paula is out shopping. Sean doesn't smile and almost glares at Peter as he says almost aggressively, "What do you want?" Peter feels thrown by the way that Sean has spoken to him, but he tries to be polite and calm as he says to Sean, "I was hoping to speak to Paula. Is she at home by any chance?" "What's she done now?" growls Sean, immediately assuming that Paula has done something stupid that will impact on him. "Oh no, I'm sorry," says Peter, trying to put Sean's mind at rest. "She hasn't done anything wrong. Quite the contrary, in fact. I just wanted to ask her if she would be interested in helping me out with Alice for a few hours each week. She probably told you how she helped me a little while back when Alice went missing." He looked at Sean expectantly, but Sean was thinking. "And you're going to pay her for this help, are you?" he finally asks. "Because she's very busy, you know." "Yes, of course," says Peter, feeling slightly offended at the implication that he expected Paula to do this for free. "I wouldn't dream of asking her to do it for nothing. No, not at all. And it would only be a few hours each week to give me a break." "Right," replies Sean. "I'll send her over to you when she comes back from the shops." And with that he closes the door. Peter heads back to the house feeling irritated by Sean and the way he spoke to him. Peter finds it hard to understand how Paula, who seems to him to be a very nice young woman, can live with someone as rude as Sean appeared to be just now. Maybe I caught him at a bad time, he thinks as he tries to justify why Sean should have been so direct and almost offensive in his manner. Oh well, I'll just have to see if he keeps his word and asks Paula to come over. When Paula arrives back with the shopping, Sean says nothing to her about Peter's visit and request for her help. He is thinking over whether he wants Paula to be mixing with people in the street. On the one hand, he likes the idea that she will be bringing money into the house again. But on the other hand, he doesn't like the idea that she will be mixing with people and out of his control. Since her mum passed away, he has got Paula exactly where he wants her, and that suits him very well. He decides that on balance, he won't say anything to her. He doesn't want her getting ideas that she is worth more than him, or better than him. He had enough of that before when she was working. It's true that he was working also at the time, but he always felt inferior to her, and so he prefers things to be the way they are right now. Peter back in number 3 tells Olive about his encounter with Sean, and Olive nods knowingly. "You know what I think of him?" she says to Peter. "I think he's a nasty piece of work." There was always something about him that I didn't warm to, but I haven't come across him in a very long time now. I get the impression that he doesn't work and he doesn't go out much, says Peter. I can't understand why Paula puts up with it. Not in this day and age. It's not easy, is it, says Olive. I mean, we don't actually know that he's that bad to live with. And even if he is, how is she supposed to get away from him? As far as I know, she doesn't have any family. It was always just her and her mum, I think. So where would she go? Anyway, it's not for you and me to be worrying about. You've got enough on your plate with Alice to look after. You're right, agrees Peter, though he can't help feeling sad for Paula. He's not surprised when she doesn't knock at his door. He guesses that Sean has not told her about his request. Kasia and Molly are enjoying a coffee together. The two young women have become good friends and they meet up at least once a week for a coffee and a chat. They take it in turns as to which flat they meet in. But today they are sitting outside enjoying the last of the warm days. Both of them are strangely quiet. In the end, Molly breaks the silence. Kasia, what's wrong? Have I done something to upset you? No, really, it's not you, says Kasia quickly, not wanting to upset her friend. She really likes Molly, but she's not sure if she can tell what's upsetting her. She hasn't known her for very long, but who else can she tell? She doesn't want to say anything to her family back home, and she hasn't really made close friends at work. Molly is the closest she has to a best friend, despite their short acquaintance. It's Paval, she finally says, and silent tears begin to trickle down her cheeks. Oh, Kasia, says Molly with concern in her voice. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to pry. You don't have to tell me if you feel uncomfortable. It's just I could tell that there was something bothering you. It's okay, replies Kasia, brushing away the tears with the back of her hand, and with some desperation in her voice, she continues. I have to tell someone. It's about me and Paval. It doesn't seem to be working out like I thought it would. Things were great before we got married, but now he seems even more distant from me. I'm beginning to think that he's having an affair or something. There, I've said it. She watches Molly to see how she reacts. In response, Molly takes Kasia's hand and gives it a little squeeze before saying gently, I know all about guys who don't live up to their promises, believe me. Then, after a slight pause, she asks, What makes you think that he's having an affair? Oh, I don't know. It's just the little things, really. He never seems to want to be with me these days. He never helps out around the flat. He just expects me to cook and wash and clean and basically be a domestic slave. Sometimes I feel more like his mother than a wife. Molly tries to be careful about what she asks Kasia and what she says next. She thinks about what her grandmother would have said and seeks inspiration from her many conversations with her. Has he always treated you like that, Kasia? Or have things only changed recently? Kasia stops and thinks about this. It's a good question. Slowly she says, I suppose if I'm really honest, he's always been like it. But it seems to be worse now. Maybe I've just run out of patience waiting for him to change. They rarely change in my opinion, states Molly with feeling. But she quickly realises that this isn't what Kasia needs to hear right now, and so she adds, but that doesn't mean that he can't change. I mean, does he know how unhappy it makes you feel? I'm not sure, says Kasia slowly. I don't suppose we've ever really had that kind of conversation. Mostly I just get mad at him. Surely he can see that I'm upset on those occasions. I wouldn't bank on it, says Molly wisely. I don't have a lot of experience with men, but my grandmother has always told me that you have to state the obvious before you can blame anyone for their continued actions, and I think she has a point. So you think I should try and explain to him how unhappy it makes me feel, even though I think it's obvious to him? Well, at least then you know that he knows. That's the point of it. He can't make excuses about not knowing how you feel then. Reluctantly and without conviction, she adds, maybe when you've told him he will try to change. You never know. Kasia thinks about this and agrees that it's a good strategy to try, for now. She doesn't need to tell her friend any more at this time. I'll see if this makes a difference before I say anything else, she tells herself. So what about you? Asks Kasia of Molly. What about me? Says Molly, who has been feeling a bit low. Well, I don't think I'm the only one this week who isn't feeling her best. I suppose you're right, agrees Molly. It's Simon upstairs. She hesitates before continuing. You know that we've become really good friends? Well, the other night we went out for a lovely meal, and when we got back here I went upstairs to his flat for a nightcap. She hesitates. After a moment of silence, she says to Kasia, I made such a fool of myself. We'd had such a good night and we'd be getting on so well. And it's been so long since I've been out with the guy, and anyway... Molly puts her head in her hands, hanging her head in shame. Kasia says nothing, but she takes her friend's hand, just as she had done for her, and finally Molly continues. So we were sitting next to each other on this big couch, and stupidly I leaned over and tried to kiss him. I don't know what I was thinking, it was so stupid of me. Why was it stupid? Asks Kasia with concern on her face. How did he react when you did this? That's just the problem, says Molly in barely a whisper. He kissed me back and then he suddenly pulled away, as though he'd been burnt. It was so awkward. I said that I should leave and I came back down to my flat. And I haven't seen or spoken to him since. I think I've spoiled a really good friendship, Kasia, and I don't know how to repair the damage. Kasia stays quiet for a while because she really doesn't know what to say that might help her friend, until finally she remembers something. What do you think your grandmother would advise you to do? Molly looks at her new friend with some surprise, and then she can't stop herself from hugging her. You're right, of course. What would she tell me to do? She thinks for a moment before saying, she would tell me to march back upstairs and apologise for being such a fool, to promise not to get stupidly drunk with him again, and ask him if he thinks he would be able to resume our relationship as the friendship it had become. Molly is feeling rather pleased with herself and very grateful to Kasia for pointing her in the right direction. She can't wait to tell her grandmother that for once she has been able to sort out her own mess without having to actually ask her for her advice. Even if the plan doesn't work, she knows that her grandmother will be proud of her for working out what to do. If you have something you would like to share or a concern you would like addressed, please send it in and we will try and incorporate it into the future storylines. Tune in again for the next episode of Relationship Road.
Welcome to Relationship Road, where people live just like me and you, alone or together in all kinds of weather, and most of them are scared of this flu. What's going on over there? It's none of my business, I know, but I couldn't help but notice it looks like psychosis. The pressure's starting to show.